Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. Welcome to another episode of the WA Property Q&A podcast, and welcome Sid Thoo.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you, Peter.
Yeah, good. As by way of introduction, Sid, you are a registered architect. You've been registered since 2007, I believe.
It felt like it was only yesterday, but yes, since 2007.
Yes.
I'm architect number 2,142 in the state of Western Australia.
2,142. Wow.
Len Buckridge is like 63 or something like that. Like maybe not quite that early, but he's a very low number.
Really?
Yeah. Was an architect.
Okay. Wow. An architect that's made a hell of a lot of money doing things that are non-architectural, I'd suggest.
Yes, yeah. He's certainly left a profound impact on the industry.
Yes. Well, I actually think I knew that because you do courses at REWA, you do courses or you do some lectures at Notre Dame.
Yep, teaching at Notre Dame University these days, but previously have taught at Curtin, a little bit at Edith Cowan, and also at UWA.
Yeah. So you like to share your knowledge.
I do. I get around.
Yeah, and I think that it was at the REWA course where I found out about Len Buckridge being an architect.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, thank you for coming to the course. I hope you learned something.
It's easily the best CPD course that they run, that REWA run. That whole day with you and Kiara and the other guy,
Simon, Malcolm.
Yeah. Yep. You know that whole thing about the R codes and designing sustainability around R codes and all that sort of stuff. It's a bloody good course. I loved it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So thanks for taking the time to chat with me. And today I want to talk about two main sort of streams of conversation.
Sure.
Number one is what makes a home flow, and number two is how do you make an older home more sustainable?
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. So
with flow.
Let's start with flow. Now you know the questions I'm about to ask.
Yes, I've done a little bit of mental preparation. I haven't written anything down.
So what makes a home flow?
Okay. So I think flow is one of those words that can take many different meanings for many different people.
Yes.
And I think sometimes it's given a bit too much emphasis and used in a bit of a kind of hand-wavy, wishy-washy kind of way.
Okay.
I guess I would probably say what makes a home flow is a home that seems intuitive. So you walk in the door and the door's in the place where you expect it to be. You arrive in a space that you expect to be in. The thing that you're aiming for, either the kitchen or the living room or the bedroom, all the spaces are kind of in the place where you kind of think they should be. I guess in that sense, they connect well. Nothing seems counterintuitive. If you'd never been to that house before, you should be able to work out basically where the bathroom is and where the toilet is. And that's something that when I go to parties in other people's houses, as an architect, I guess with my professional background and training, I can usually work out where the toilet is without having to ask, but not always. So yeah, I guess for me, a house that flows is one that just seems to make sense and follows a certain kind of logic. Not to say that it can't be quirky or have idiosyncrasies. I think that's something that's an important part of a home's character and aesthetic. But yeah, I guess it is just everything gelling and falling into place and things just seem to be the way they should be.
The reason I probably should preface this because I'm interested in this stuff, but I part of the reason I'm interested in it is because I actually think that homes that flow better, that are intuitive, I think they sell better.
Yeah.
And I think that you could almost argue that the resale value of those homes are better as a result of their design.
Yeah. It would be nice if we could quantify that.
It would be.
A bit like how you can't actually say it, but it has been implied that architect homes are more valuable and therefore will attract a better sale price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any hard data to actually substantiate and quantify that. However, I will say that whether a house is designed by a homeowner, a building designer, a draftsman, or an architect, houses that are designed well, that take into account the needs of their clients, that give consideration to things like thermal comfort, energy efficiency, sustainability, that have good quality finishes, that are sympathetic to their streetscape and their neighborhood. I think that those things all have a cumulative effect that other people will see and appreciate the effort that's gone into designing that house. And, I'm sure you've had this conversation with your clients and your customers, but I guess sometimes people get a little bit fixated on, what are the things, what are the 5 things I need to put in my house to increase its resale value?
Mm-hmm.
And then traditionally would say things like, ducted aircon and engineered stone bench tops, but, they're a no-no now, obviously. And would kind of pick off these kind of really obvious kind of quantitative things that are actually really quite superficial. But if a house is designed fundamentally well and the plan makes sense, and yes, it may be designed to suit that particular family that live there, but when it's time for them to move on and wherever chapter they're up to in their lives, there'll be some other kind of family, couple, homeowner that will come in and go, yeah, I get it. I like this place. It's got a good vibe. It feels good. And sometimes it might be hard to quantify exactly what it is that makes that place feel positive and have that good energy. But I think people can kind of sense it.
Because you can always retrofit your stone bench tops and your stainless steel appliances, but
you certainly can.
You almost can never retrofit a good flow, good home design.
Yeah, if the floor plan's kind of a bit
if the floor plan works, the floor plan will always work pretty much.
What's that saying? You can't polish a turd.
You can't polish a turd.
But then as an interior design friend of mine said, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter.
and that often happens in property.
And when you kind of add the bling and you bring in the fancy furniture and you turn all the lights on and you do those things to try and make the house feel a bit more kind of warmly and welcome and comfortable. But yeah, I think still sometimes you can still tell when bad decisions have been made, despite your best efforts to kind of mask or kind of hide them. Having said that, property is a very fickle industry. It's very volatile, and we're in a very strong demand market at the moment. And yeah, I guess even if it's not a particularly good house or it doesn't have a particularly good floor plan, you can probably still get a pretty good price for it these days, the way the market's going. So yeah.
Yeah, and on that design issue, you take a home like that Ivanhoe home in, is it Ivanhoe or Ivanhoe?
Ivanhoe.
Ivanhoe home.
Yep.
I think it's over in towards Floriat. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. The one that got
burnt down and rebuilt.
I went to high school with the wife.
Right.
Yeah. She works for West Farmers. Both her and her husband work for West Farmers. I don't know the husband. She probably wouldn't remember me, but yeah, I went to high school with her, Lisa Church.
Yeah. Right. But that home is a great example of design.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're talking about. You walk in, and it's just like everything is just feels. It's like it's in the right spot, it's.
Ivanhoe was an amazing architect. I believe trained somewhere in his education by Frank Lloyd Wright, and he was kind of classified as a modernist, brutalist kind of architecture.
Mm-hmm.
He did amazing things with bricks and masonry units where he would make these kind of almost sculptural kind of patterns and forms.
Mm-hmm.
And still a modernist in terms of his architectural sensibilities and philosophy. But yes, there's a lot of playfulness and character in his homes. It's hard to design a house like that these days. But look, there's still a market for it and there's still architects that can cater for those needs. But yeah, no, he was an amazing architect. And for someone of such a high international pedigree, and reputation to end up in Perth, Western Australia, practicing architecture.
Mm.
The Northern Library was also designed by him. So that's
Really?
worth checking out if you're ever out that way.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. So I went through a home with a client. I've been a couple, but the one I'm thinking of is, by all accounts, the home was perfect. It was just like the ideal size, the ideal price range, and you walked in, and it had this open planned kitchen, meals, family room.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started to go, well, where are we actually going to put the dining room, like the dining table?
The three-seater lounge,
where are we actually going to put that? Yeah. And suddenly it no longer worked.
Yeah.
It just like, okay, if we're going to put the lounge here, we're going to be hard up against the
enough space to put the dining table there, or you're going to have to squeeze past that bit of furniture to go from here to there.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah. So what are the red flags here? What should people be watching for? Because these things are like, they're so easy to overlook when you walk through a home and there's 50 other groups of people there, and you're under pressure to make a decision. And it's just easy to look at the stainless steel appliances and the stone bench tops and go, oh, isn't it so lovely? And then buy it and then realize, oh, I've actually bought a shit design.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So therein lies the irony of open plan design, right? Where this idea of it being an open plan space, we have minimal internal walls, you can configure and use the space however you wish, theoretically. But if you haven't thought about how an open plan is actually going to work and where the dining table is going to go and where the lounge suite is going to go, just because you've got a lot of big open space doesn't necessarily mean it's good functional space.
Mm.
And, for example, I guess you take these high-end architectural ideas, open plan living, open plan design, and, eventually it kind of gets watered down to the mass market. So the volume builders and the project homes and the like. And what you often see is that what volume builders are trying to do is to build the most rectangular or like simple 4 corners, 90-degree angles home that they can. So basically just build a rectangle and then they just kind of cram everything in, because that's the easiest, cheapest and fastest way in which they can build a home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when open plan design, you go, oh, large open plan living, kitchen, dining, but actually it's just the corner of the building where they couldn't fit anything else. So they just kind of stuck it all in there. But actually when you sit down and think about it, that space doesn't work particularly well. So I guess having purchased a house recently and been in that situation where it's a hot market and you kind of have to make a decision quickly, it's kind of good if you can get that second viewing, if the agent's got a floor plan available, and maybe just have a think about how the space will actually be furnished. And I guess if you've got people setting up the house for the display and the home open and the like, you'd think that they would arrange the furniture in some kind of logical sequence. So I guess maybe
this one was vacant.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, which they can make it even harder to understand how the space is actually going to work. And yeah, in those open plan spaces, you can sometimes get this kind of big empty void that's just kind of in the middle there, that you can't put any furniture there. You can't really use that space. And yet it's supposed to be some very positive open plan. So yeah, I guess it can help maybe to get some advice, maybe from a building designer or an architect or an interior designer to come with you, if you can do that. I guess if you've got very distinct pieces of furniture and items that you own, have in mind the size they are, maybe draw them out on a bit of paper, and then think about how you might actually arrange them in that space when you move in. Because we can't always afford to buy a new dining table or lounge suite when we move into a new home. And yeah, just working with what you've got. Yeah, it's a very good point that you raised, though.
So with room sizes, room sizes can be too small.
Yes.
And once they're too small, they're impossible to fix. So there's a place just around the corner from where I live. Walk in, the family, the dining room, the kitchen, the family room, that was all okay. And then you walk into the bedroom and they're tiny. Like you really would only put a a double bed or maybe a king single in all of them. And you look at it and go, well, how could I fix this up? And you go, I couldn't.
No.
Um,
IKEA.
Yeah, well, it's just like if you wanted to have a queen size bed in those rooms, you've suddenly got no room for your bedside tables, or you couldn't open the walk-in robe doors or all that sort of stuff. So small rooms are a problem.
Yep.
But you can have rooms that are too big as well, can't you?
Certainly can, yeah. And I think it, again, comes down to how you're actually going to furnish and inhabit that space. So, something I always do as an architect when I'm drawing a concept design for a client, I will always show furniture, and I'll have a rough idea as to I know the size of a queen bed, and I know the size of a king bed and a single bed and what a typical table is. So I will put that in the space to make sure that they can fit. And I guess therein lies the challenge, right? You don't want to make the house any bigger than what it necessarily needs to be. So try and keep it compact, but you don't want to make it so that it's kind of feeling cramped and the spaces don't work properly. So some design tips for bedrooms if people are building and/or renovating. I would probably say around about anywhere from just over 12 to 16 square meters. I probably wouldn't make a room much smaller than that.
Mm-hmm.
So 4x4 works quite well. You can get 4x3 to work. 4x3.5 meters is probably a better space. Walk-in or built-in robes are pretty much a standard thing these days. And even if you don't build them in, you plan for how that's going to fit into the space. So I often work with clients that have limited budgets. And so I don't really like doing those really basic robes where it's just a bit of wood and there's a rail kind of screwed to the underside.
Yeah.
So I always design recesses for robes that kind of fit systems like the Bunnings one and the IKEA one, so that you can go and get one of those flat pack wardrobes and know that it's going to fit within that space.
Mm-hmm.
I often don't put doors directly into the corners of rooms. I always try and set them off slightly, because then that gives you the ability to put furniture behind the door.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you put the door straight in the corner, then the only place you can put a bit of furniture is kind of close to the door, but up against the wall, and then it kind of blocks the door as you're kind of walking in. So that can kind of make it a bit awkward. I usually design around queen size beds. So not that every client has a queen size bed, and a lot of kids obviously still sleep in single beds, but I will show a queen size bed because I think that's kind of...
It makes sense too, because your kids are not going to be 5 years old forever.
No.
And if they hang around after they turn 20, they're not going to be sleeping in a single bed anymore.
No, they're not. So designing spaces so they can adapt and change over time too. And I guess meeting your needs now while also planning for potential future needs and potential future prospective buyers. I guess you tend to see those smaller rooms in much older houses where bedrooms were very utilitarian, and it was really just...
Especially the 80s, where it was... Well, I remember talking to a building salesperson, he was a housing consultant.
Yeah.
And we go, wow, the bedrooms are very small. He said, yeah, they are small, and they're deliberately small because what we've chosen to do, is put more space in the living area. And less space in the bedrooms, because you go to sleep in your bedrooms, you don't live in there.
Yeah, but the way we inhabit houses has changed over time now, and anyone with a teenage child would know that they just live in their room.
It was BS to sell the house, let's face it, but that was a thing back in the 80s where bedrooms were designed.
One little trick that I heard apparently some of the volume builders used to do was that they would design these rooms that were too small for like a double bed or a queen bed, but then they would get custom furniture made so that the bed looked like it was a double or a queen bed, but it was scaled down proportionally.
Oh, wow.
So it looked like it was the right size, but if you actually tried to put a real double or queen size bed in there, there was no way it was ever going to fit.
Yeah.
Hopefully that kind of thing doesn't happen too much anymore, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. Yeah. So that's okay. That's bedrooms. What else can you tell me?
About flow?
Yeah.
Okay. Bedrooms. Think about where your wet areas are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And look, this taps into my passion about sustainability and designing houses that are energy efficient. I often try and keep the wet areas of a house clustered together. Kind of simplifies the plumbing, means that you kind of have one part of the house that's where all the showering and the washing go. Like laundries that back onto kitchens, bathrooms, like en suites that back onto bathrooms. Try and keep them in a central place, and minimize like having distant runs of plumbing going from one end of the house to the other.
Yep.
It probably doesn't make much of a difference to the cost of the build, but it certainly makes it easier to manage and maintain over time. And yeah, it makes it more efficient to run your whole wall.
Yeah, yes. So as the years progress, the home design seems to have gone in different directions. So back in the 70s and 80s, probably even earlier than that, you had this formal dining room, formal lounge room or drawing room, and then you had the kitchen, and in the 80s you started to get these family rooms off the kitchen. So you had the informal living areas and formal living areas. And that pretty much is no longer, no one has that anymore. It's pretty much gone.
Yep. Now they have home theaters.
I was just about to ask you that question. Yes, the home theaters. Are the home theaters going to become the 19 or the early 2000s version of the formal and informal living area?
Probably, yeah. And again, with the way how a lot of houses get designed by the volume housing market, you draw a rectangle, you fit as many rooms in there as you can, and if you have a bit of space left over, you call it a home theater. Yeah, I kind of get the whole audio visual. I want the big screen TV and the surround sound and the comfy chairs, and there's a place for that. But come to think of it, I don't think I've ever designed a house with a home theater.
Yes.
I guess the kind of clients that I'm fortunate enough to have that seek out an architect like me often want to design small, compact homes. They don't have superfluous space, and a home theater is not necessarily part of that kind of feature set that they're looking for in a home.
I suspect that that home theaters are going to go the way of the dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I suspect that home designers are going to start making bigger bedrooms. And why? Because if you were a teenager, you want your own space with a decent sized bed, a desk for studying, and maybe even a little loungy kind of area where a couple of your friends can sit down and watch you play video games, or you could all play video games together, which requires a larger room. And you don't want to, be necessarily be doing that out in the family room with mum and dad.
I actually designed a house in Swanview for a lovely family.
Mm-hmm.
I have had 3 young children at the time when I designed the house. This would have been back in 2009, 2010. And we had the kind of main open plan living area, kitchen, dining, lounge.
Mm-hmm.
But then coming off the corner of that lounge living area was like a games room, or an informal lounge, whatever you want to call it. And the children's bedrooms were clustered around that space. So it was connected to the rest of the house, but it was a distinctly separate space that could have a table tennis table in there. It could have a second TV, and basically its use could change and adapt as the children got older.
Architect designed activity room. Oh my God, I've seen those before.
Yeah, and I think thinking about the way we live in our houses, COVID certainly brought things into a stark kind of reality where we got trapped in our houses for an extended period of time, where basically we could only go out to do our shopping and that was it. And I think a lot of people realized just how crappy their houses were. That the spaces weren't particularly good and they didn't quite work the way they wanted when they had to spend all of their time inside their house. And it's been great for business for me as an architect, because a lot of people now realize that they want to do things to make their home nicer and more livable. And I think it's also good in terms of raising awareness for the value that good design brings to your home or your renovation. Because there's so many things that you can do that aren't necessarily expensive or difficult things to do that can make that home much more comfortable to live in and, just more livable all around.
Are there any fads going around at the moment that are not going to be here in 10 or 20 years' time?
Yes. As to what they are, I honestly couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Try not to get caught up in what the latest fad or trend happens to be.
Yeah. Certainly from a home decoration, like interior design, that's fad central.
Absolutely. I don't think it needs to be. And I think it's a bit shameful and a little bit wasteful that it is. This idea that, I don't like that decor anymore. I'm just going to rip it all out, throw it at a skip and do it all over again.
Yes.
On an interesting side there is that in a lot of retail tenancies, so in the big shopping centers, you sign a lease for one of those retail spaces. They have a clause in the contract that requires you to refit your store every 5 years.
Yes.
And, if it costs you $250,000 to do a fit out to a retail, like, when are you actually going to make any money?
Yeah.
And I think, thankfully, a lot of center managements don't enforce that contract. But it's crazy. There's a famous architectural quote. I think it was Louis Sullivan that said, "Form follows function." This idea that the form and the geometry of a building should be only and directly informed by the function of its space and the way it's going to be used. But in truth, in architecture, form follows fashion. And there are things that are kind of cool at the moment. So, one fad that I really hope goes away is black colored roofs. I think that's a terrible idea.
Yes.
We often look at...
People love monument.
They do, yeah. Colorbond matte.
Yeah.
That's very popular. I think, I try not to let those things inform my design sensibilities and my choices. They probably do at some subconscious level, but I guess I try to always go back to fundamentals, just design good spaces that meet the client's needs, that takes into account the requirements of their brief, that can be built affordably, that I hope that building will be around in 50, 70, 100 years' time, and that people will look back and go, yeah, that's still a pretty good house. That's what I aim for anyway.
What about outdoor living spaces? Because it's all about the inside, but as Australians, we just love living outdoors.
Yeah, and that gets back to your point about flow, this idea of the indoor-outdoor connection. Is that a fad? I don't think so. That kind of makes sense, and I think that's definitely suited to our climate. So pretty much every client comes to me wanting a outdoor living area that's directly connected to their kitchen and or living area to have that indoor-outdoor flow. And I think that makes a lot of sense when you live in a beautiful climate like what we have here in Perth. The challenge is often to do with orientation and how you make all those spaces work. So what I often see is, if you're trying to design a house that takes advantage of the sun and uses it to keep it cool in summer and warm in winter, you might then end up with a living area that faces north, which is a good thing for getting solar gain into the house. But then logically, you put your outdoor living area right next to that living area. So then that is on the north side of your building. And then people put a covered roof over the top of it because they want to use it all throughout the year.
Yes.
And they start blocking the winter sun. It's okay in summer because it keeps the sun out, but then it can make your house cold in winter. Look, there's ways to design around that. And the easiest way is to do what's called a covered solar pergola, where you design it so that it still allows the winter sun in, but it's covered so that it keeps the rain and the weather out. I think the key thing there is understanding where the sun's coming from, designing your building to suit your lot and the orientation of the sun, while also meeting the requirements of your brief. So working out and thinking carefully about where you might put that outdoor living area in relation to the main living area. For example, you might put it on the east side of your house instead of on the north, because then you can have a covered area that provides shading from the early morning summer sun. Still gives you that indoor-outdoor connection, yet doesn't compromise the northern aspect of your home.
Is it possible to retrofit old homes to be like livable / sustainable?
Yes. And I think there's a fair argument to be made that retrofitting of existing housing stock is the most sustainable way forward. And I don't know what the exact number is, but I know from past projects where I've done, and we've done this thing called life cycle assessment, where we try and work out how much energy and carbon goes into making a building over the lifespan of its building. When you renovate, as opposed to demolish and build completely from scratch, you can reduce the total carbon emissions by around 40 to 50%.
I own a 1950s home. Where do I start with making that home more sustainable / comfortable.
Yeah.
What's the somebody's starting point?
And what style of house are you in?
I think
turn this into a prospective client meeting.
I love it. Well, so we'll call it an Art Deco Californian bungalow.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And
it's got the stucco plaster on the outside, and
some kind of fancy windows, ornate kind of cornices and the like.
Yes, all of the above.
Excellent, beautiful house by the sounds of it. And it's probably okay in summer, but freezing cold in winter.
Yes. It's a bit from column A and a bit from column B. Yes.
And what have you done to the house so far?
Well, we put, bless you. So we put R6 insulation in the ceilings.
Okay.
What a pain in the ass that is.
Right.
Because it's so thick, no one can get into the roof space now. I had an aircon guy come around and to do some work, and he's just looked at it going, "Oh my god!"
Like a 275.
It's about this thick. It's massive.
Did it make any difference?
I think it has. Yeah, I think.
And that's the low hanging fruit kind of thing that you can do to improve the thermal performance of a home. If I were without knowing the specifics of your house. Basically, the two main things that I would do, or three main things I would do: upgrade the ceiling insulation.
Yes.
Install cavity wall insulation. Seal up all the holes in your house to reduce the drafts and the air movement through the building fabric.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty much they're the top three.
Cavity wall insulation is super expensive.
Is it?
Well, that's my experience. I had those guys come around to do the insulation. And we just looked at the price and went, "Oh, maybe we'll put that on hold for the moment."
Sure. Okay. I'm just trying to think how much, because I did my house and I didn't use the same company that would have spoken to you. The company that I used is now owned by some other people, and I'm not sure if they are the right people to do the job anymore. But I think it was around about $4,000 to do my house. And it was about $3,000 to do the ceiling.
Yes. Because insulating the walls turns the whole home into a giant esky, doesn't it?
Yes, but in a good way.
Yes.
That makes sense. The thing with most of the houses that we've built in Western Australia are cavity brick houses. So they've got anywhere from 90 to 110 millimeters of brick on the outside, a 50 mil cavity, and then 90 to 110 millimeters of brick on the inside. And a lot of people believed that the cavity in the wall kind of added to the insulation of their home, and that's why we built cavity brick. But actually, the only reason the cavity is there is because brick's porous. And if it gets wet, basically the water migrates from one side of the brick to the other. And if the outside layer of brick is touching the inside layer of brick, the water will migrate all the way into your building. Then you'll have mushrooms growing inside your home, and not the kind that you want to smoke or eat. So that's the reason for the cavity. But the wall has a high level of thermal mass, but not a very good level of insulation. So it can help to keep your home cooler in summer, but I can almost guarantee it will make your house colder in winter, because the thermal mass basically sucks the heat.
Yes.
And rather than heating the space inside your building, the heat dissipates into the walls, and then the walls get warm rather than the building itself getting warm. So it's not my ideal way of building. Like, you can make it work, but basically the way to get cavity brickwork construction to work is to put insulation in the cavity. That blow-in insulation is probably the best kind to use.
Yes. Is another option to put a skin on the outside of the brickwork?
Yes. So another great way to build a wall is what we call a reverse brick veneer, where you put brick on the inside, and that gives you thermal mass that helps to regulate and stabilize the temperature. But to stop all the heat from disappearing into the walls in winter, you then build frame construction on the outside of that brick wall, fill that with insulation, put your cladding on the outside, and then basically you have a brick veneer, but the veneer's on the outside. Sorry, the brick's on the inside and the cladding's on the outside. That gives you very good thermal performance for a house. So you can do that. I guess the challenge is, though, that when you're adding to the external perimeter of your building, if you're already on the boundary, then adding another 90 to 120 millimeters of framing and cladding might then put you too close to the boundary, which then creates a planning issue. So if your house is in the middle of a big lot, yeah, sure, not a problem. But you might need to just be mindful of the setbacks and the distances from the side boundaries.
Okay. And so what about double glazed windows? Are they worthwhile?
Yes, but they wouldn't be the first thing that I would do.
Okay.
So, and I discovered this working with a client of mine from about 5-6 years ago. Had an old kind of corner shop that had been converted into a house in Mount Lawley, built out of brick around the turn of the century. Okay in summer, freezing cold in winter. And we modeled the energy rating for their house. And unsurprisingly enough, it was only something like 2.3 stars out of a possible 10 stars. And it was reflected in her lived experience that it was freezing cold in winter and it needed lots of energy to keep that building warm. And so we tested out different retrofit options for that client to see, okay, well, if we upgraded the windows or added insulation here, there, or whatever, what difference does that make? And what we found is that windows make a very small improvement, like maybe 0.3, 0.4 of a star in the case of this particular house, but they cost 3 or 4 times the cost of doing other things like fitting ceiling insulation or fitting cavity wall insulation. But yes, everything that you do can improve the building envelope and the fabric and make it more energy efficient. But there's certainly things that I would do first because they either cost less or they will have a bigger impact on the overall performance.
You mentioned about getting rid of the gaps, sealing the gaps. How do you go about doing that?
There's a variety of techniques that you can use. So the junctions are the areas that you need to focus on in an old house. So basically where the floor meets the wall, where the window goes in the wall, where the door goes in the wall, where the wall meets the ceiling, it's almost always at the junctions where you have gaps. So if you take the old wooden floorboards that we love in these kind of old kind of mid-century houses, and they build the wall will be over here, and then the floorboard will finish like 30 millimeters short. No, it's going to be hidden by skirting, and that doesn't matter.
True.
I'm actually renovating my kitchen at the moment. So I ripped out the kitchen and I kind of knew that I was going to discover this, but I saw it as a stark reality there. Basically, there were no floorboards where the kitchen cabinets were.
Oh, wow.
I can see through to the underside and up garden of my home because it was going to be covered by a cabinet. But having a big gaping hole in your floor is not going to make for a very airtight home. And if your home's not airtight, it's very hard to kind of control the temperature in your space because you've got air flowing in and out of all of these gaps and holes and you can't really stop it. So I'm replacing all of my floorboards and then I'll have a little gap left along the edge of the wall. Then I'll fill that with what's called a backing rod. So it's a little piece of expanding, it's not expanding foam, but it's a little bit of squishy plastic. It comes in a roll. You can buy it at the hardware store beginning with B. And basically you stick that down into the gap and then it kind of expands out. So you squish it, you stick it in, it pushes out. It fills up that gap and then you seal it up with a mastic or a sealant on top of that.
And then you put your corner round over the top
then
of that?
You put your your skirting or your quarter round over the top of that. And then you get a nice kind of airtight seal along the edge of your building. So it's a little bit of extra work, but it's not that hard to do. Most people could do it themselves. And it's just about not taking that attitude of out of sight, out of mind. Oh, if I can't see it, then I don't need to worry about it. Thinking, well, that's a hole. I can plug it up. I can fill that. Bigger holes you'd fill with one of those cans of expanding foam. So there's a part of my floor where after I've put the floorboards back in, I'm going to go back in and spray the expanding foam. And then that will just expand. And that expands like 4 times its original size and will fill up any gaps that are left over. So little things like that. Plastering up holes, using the sealants, filling the gaps between your floorboards where the tongue and groove joints don't come together. Right? If you can see light coming through a bit that you shouldn't be able to see light coming through, then it basically needs to be filled and sealed.
What about the in the 50s? They used to put holes in the ceilings, like the little vents in the corner.
That's the way of kind of dissipating the heat.
They
don't work.
They don't work. Yeah.
All they do is allow crap in your ceiling to fall down into your room and everything gets covered in a fine layer of dust. And they make your house less airtight. So basically they don't work.
Seal over them.
So one trick you can do there, you can get different colored mastics. So you can get like a dark gray or a black, and then you get up and you just kind of plug the holes so you can still see the architecture and the style of the of the vent that's been built into the roof.
Yeah. If you liked it that much.
Yes. Or go up in through the roof space, but obviously be careful because there's electrical wires and plumbing and services up there. And then maybe just cut off a square of plasterboard from a sheet and then stick it down over the top and then seal it around the edge. And that's another way of sealing it up. But yeah, it was this idea that, heat rises, so therefore I'll put some holes in the ceiling to allow the heat to rise up through into the roof and dissipate. And look, that's kind of true, but that's not the main mechanism through which heat flow occurs in that space. And certainly they don't do enough to make any difference to improving the thermal comfort of that room or space.
Okay.
Can I just add a caveat?
Yeah.
Where you have vents like that in the outside of the wall, usually below floor level, don't seal those up.
Yes.
They need to be left open because they allow for subfloor ventilation, which you need to allow moisture to stop moisture and condensation from accumulating. And it helps to prevent termites, helps to prevent timber rot. So yeah, those ones you need to leave unsealed.
Yes. So that's the stuff below floor level. Yep.
In the subfloor.
What about the vents that so if you've got a gas heater, you're required to have a
don't seal them up.
Don't seal that up.
Them from a regulation point of view.
Yes.
Then a lot of people are moving away from gas these days.
Yes.
And there's a lot of data to show that, basically burning hydrocarbons in your living room as a form of heating leads to asthma, allergies, various other health outcomes, carbon monoxide poisoning, because not all of that gas will burn properly. And if the building can't breathe or it doesn't have vents to allow some of that to be mixed in with fresh air from the outside, you can dramatically reduce the indoor air quality.
What tradesperson would do all that if you weren't, if you were a bit handyman challenged, as I am?
See, you're not the first person to ask that. And I actually struggle to think of someone who might do that. Yeah. And I almost think that maybe I should start doing it. It's not hard to do. And I'm working with a client now who has a house in Kensington, and I'm probably going to go around and spend an afternoon with them at some point and say, okay, this is how you do it. And get to the point of them, they're going to finish off doing it themselves. Carpenters should be able to do it, particularly finishing carpenters, the ones that do all the nice little trims. But everyone's so busy these days, and a lot of them aren't used to doing it, even though they know how to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's almost a need for a kind of new sub-trade of people that can go through and do these energy efficient retrofits.
So for anyone out there listening, here's a side hustle for you.
Yeah, and if you're keen or if you've got the skills already, get in touch. I'd love to meet you and to recommend you to people.
Yeah, I reckon I could recommend them to at least one person, as in myself.
I made a YouTube video where I put door seals on my front door.
Yeah.
To show people how to do it. And I had like 39 people watch the video. Yeah.
You're kind of famous. Now, and on the matter of seals, doors are pretty leaky, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
And windows.
Yes. Good doors and windows, like new ones, say built within the last kind of 10, 15 years, they should be fine. Because they was.
I've got a 1950s home, remember?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So retrofitting your existing windows is probably a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. There are companies out there that specialize in timber window repair from that era of home. Mm-hmm. It's a very expensive exercise, though. So you just have to think about, again, bang for buck, low hanging fruit. That will make a difference, but it will probably make a smaller difference than, say, spending money on putting the ceiling insulation in instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we lose a lot of, you can feel the air blowing in around the front door.
You can hear it. Like, you can definitely feel it. So.
Yeah.
I once woke up in a house I was living in the middle of the night, and there was someone whistling in my room. And I worked out it was actually a hole in the frame of the window, like just where they kind of sealed it. And the ironic thing is they'd put in a UPVC double glazed window, but it hadn't been installed properly.
Yes.
There was a little gap in the corner. Yeah.
So I installed some, went to Bunnings and, bought some of these, strips that you put.
So Ravens make them. I think another company called Morday make them.
They fell off.
Right.
What am I doing wrong?
Probably haven't cleaned the surface properly. So you need to use a bit of sugar soap, maybe a bit of alcohol, wiped it down, get all the dirt off. The adhesive won't stick, basically, unless it's a clean surface.
Someone needs to come up with a side hustle.
Yep.
And do this stuff.
Watch this space. We'll come back to you on that. I've had this conversation with Chiara Pashivici from Green Gurus.
Yeah.
There is definitely a need. So if anyone's keen, please get in touch.
Yes. Well, so in terms of priorities, it's ceiling insulation.
Yep.
Number one.
Yep.
Number two.
Cavity wall insulation.
Cavity wall insulation.
You say it's expensive, but I say it's worth it.
Okay. Right.
I lived in my house in Bayswater for one summer.
Yes.
And basically I had to have the aircon on.
So they blow this stuff in, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So they have this machine that's called a hopper, and they fill it with a granulated insulation. So it's like the stuff that the bats are made out of, but it's been broken up into little chunks. And basically this hopper chews it up and kind of spits it out, and it gets sucked in through a tube, and they stick it in the wall and they blow it in, and they drill holes in your wall every 600 millimeters apart.
Yes.
So it does have an impact on the aesthetic of your home. They do patch it afterwards, but like if you're thinking of repainting your home, do the cavity wall insulation first. They can patch it up and then you can repaint over it, and people will be none the wiser. And
if somebody comes along later and wants to run an electrical cable up through the,
yes.
Is that still possible?
It is. Just do your electrician a favor and tell them that you've got cavity wall insulation.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell an electrician who came in and did some work on our house that we had cavity wall insulation. Mm-hmm. It just took him longer to get his chase through and to pull the cable through. And I said, sorry about that. Just charge me for the extra time. So the insulation is compacted in that space, but it's not so compacted that you can't still run a conduit or a bit of wiring.
Right.
The wall.
Yeah. So they just need to know that it's there.
Yeah. And allow extra time for them to work their chase or their cable down through the cavity.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Yes. So it's we talk wall insulation and then
sealing up the gaps.
Sealing up the gaps.
Yep.
What's next?
Probably ceiling fans. So
ceiling fans. Okay. Back to the wall insulation.
Yes.
Sorry.
No worries.
Do you have to do all walls?
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
But some walls might be too difficult, and that's
so. If you have a west-facing wall, would you like you do the south and west-facing wall?
I would do the entire perimeter of the building.
Mm-hmm.
The way heat flows is it will always find the weakest point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a wall and there's a window in that wall, basically the heat will flow predominantly through the window because the window is the most conductive surface.
Yes.
If you have a building with 4 walls and 2 of those walls are insulated and 2 of them aren't, you reduce the heat flow through those 2 walls that are insulated, but then you have disproportionately greater heat flow through the walls that aren't insulated. So you kind of only get a marginal improvement because you still have more heat flow coming through.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's the key thing there, that really you want to do the entire perimeter of your building. If you, yeah.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt there.
All right.
So we're back to ceiling fans.
Yeah.
What about PVCs on the roof?
PVs, photovoltaics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they won't do anything to improve the thermal comfort of your home,
mm-hmm.
but except that they'll make it cheaper for you to run your air conditioning because you're using the energy from the sun rather than power that you're burning from a coal-fired power station on the grid.
Mm.
They're definitely worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
Though, and look, the payback is, within 5 years with the way things are going, electricity prices are just going to keep on going up. And and solar PV, renewable energy, is a no-brainer. I think there's something like almost 2 million houses now in Australia that have solar PV. So, I guess you just need to think about the condition of your roof. So I haven't done it on my house, for example. I've got this old terracotta roof, clay tile roof, and the tiles are fretting, which basically means whenever I go up into the ceiling, there's a thin layer of red dust sitting on my insulation bats because they're basically falling apart from underneath. So I know my house needs to be re-roofed. So I don't really want to put solar panels on my roof before it's re-roofed.
And when you re-roof, are you going to re-roof in Colorbond?
I may have to, but I was trying not to.
Mm-hmm. Why?
So I thought I would like to keep, I've got a Californian bungalow built in 1938, and I was hoping to keep that same aesthetic. You could make it work with a Colorbond metal deck roof, but it's obviously not quite how the house was originally designed and intended. But it is quite expensive to get a house re-roofed tiles. We'd had one quote and it came in at $35,000 plus GST. So I looked at that particular system because that company also had a a solar tile that was the same size as the roof tile. So rather than mounting the solar panels on top of the roof tile, you could integrate it into the laying of the roof.
Yes.
But it was already $35,000 $38,000 to do the roof without the solar tiles.
Oh, wow.
That's going to have to go on the back burner for now.
Yeah.
Even architects don't have endless pots of money.
Oh, come on. Yeah. No, of course they don't. I think that's about all we've got time for. We could talk about this for days.
Yes, maybe I could come back.
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome because I think that to my way of thinking, good design and great finish makes a really comfortable, good home. Like it's like if you can get those pieces right, and then if you can get the comfort, livability, sustainability piece right.
And I would argue that all comes under good design.
Yeah.
And, the funny thing about design is a conscious act, right? Like you design and set out with the intention of designing something. And I don't believe anyone ever sets out with the intent to design something badly.
Mm-hmm.
It often is the result of a compromise process or a misunderstanding of the client's brief or poor communication between the client, the architect, and the builder that makes a design bad. So I think we all start out with the best of intentions, and I think it's just about taking a holistic view and looking at going beyond the stainless steel appliances and the stone bench tops, but thinking about how long is this house going to be around for? How am I going to live in it? How can I make the best out of this space? No, I don't have an unlimited budget, but where should I spend my money to get my best bang for buck? I guess when you take into account all of those things and you have an informed client, a knowledgeable architect, and a skilled builder working together and collaboratively, then you've got your best chance for success.
Sid, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and with us. Like it's just super, super valuable.
Absolutely.
And thanks for all the work you do at REWA. I don't speak on their behalf, but I do know that I've attended those courses. And for any agent that is listening into this course, to this podcast, be sure to go and attend your courses because they are just terrific. Now, for people that want to reach out to you and get you to start designing something, doing something for them.
Too busy. I was speaking to a prospective client yesterday. She was almost in tears because I said I didn't think I was going to be available to take on her project. So I'm not really mad, but we found a way I can potentially still help her. So I am stupidly busy at the moment, but I do want to help, and I'm always happy to have a chat. And a lot of it.
You're incredibly generous with your time.
Well, I think the more people know and the more you share that knowledge, then the better we are. I'm a firm believer that a rising tide floats all boats. So
yes, but I'm just going to do what you didn't want to do and say that people should visit Sid Thoo, SIDTHOO.com.
Yep, just .com. Or if you just Google my name, Sid Perth Architect, come up. Yeah, just ignore those photos from when I was young, those naked photos. It was a long time ago and I needed the money. But...
Well, and if you can also find Sid's OnlyFans account at...
You were my subscriber.
One and only, Sid, one and only.
Thanks, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Sid, that's been great. And until next time, this has been Peter Fletcher on the WA Property Q&A podcast. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.